Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The financial relationship between state and local governments in Nigeria has for long been marred in a lack of transparency. State governors are usually accused of misappropriating funds meant for local government councils. All of this due to a loophole in the current system, which allows the states to receive allocations from the federal purse on behalf of the local councils. But will it all begin to change now that a decision has been made to review the revenue allocation formula? Are we going to see reforms deep enough to unravel the old layers of corruption that have defined this master-servant relationship? We are now being joined by Chika Mbonu, Financial Affairs Analyst and a former Chief Executive Officer of several banks in Nigeria. He's here to talk about how an enhanced flow of funds could impact on development at the state, federal, and local government levels. Chika Mbonu, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Well, you are what we call in some other, circumstances, an in-house man.
Yes, I'm in-house.
Yes, but it's
I carry eyes all over the place now.
It's good to have you here. Well, I mean, after the much talk about reviewing the revenue allocation formula in line with the constitutional provision that, the revenue allocation formula should be reviewed periodically to reflect current and economic realities. At last, we have the chairman of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission talking about setting up a committee next week to take a look at it. Considering the fact that revenue allocation is such a heavily politicized, controversial subject in Nigeria since 1946. One commission after another, one commission after another. Are you optimistic that this time we'll be able to get it right? And what are the fault lines that may make it difficult for us to come up with a fair, realistic, and acceptable revenue allocation formula?
You really, put it out already that the issue of revenue allocation is as old as Nigeria, even older than Nigeria, because from even 1946 there was the Philipson Commission that was set up. 1951 there was another Philipson commission, Philipson Commission that was set up. Then later days, some of the enemies we will recognize. The Abayode Commission, 1977-78. Then there was Okibo's Commission, 1981. So it's as old as Nigeria. It's a continuous exercise. And because, as you said already, it's highly political. So you do recall also that the current regime of the sharing formula was the one that the former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, put in place. Indeed, in 2013, this Revenue Mobilization and Allocation and Fiscal Commission tried to get up a new revenue sharing formula. And they finished it by December 2014 and submitted it to the government then. But I guess they lacked the political will because they were exiting, I guess, or before the election, to implement it. So we have been having the one that's been there since Obasanjo's regime. And several parameters have changed since then. But you see, for me, it's not the issue of sharing what we have. It is basically how do we bake more? How do we get more? How do we bake more? Because the revenue of Nigeria now is at about 90% oil-based. Every other thing contributes very less than 10%. So it's still the oil that is something that everybody is pushing for. As you said, it's very political. We're hoping that the same exercise, remember, they did this kind of setting committee going around the 36 states of the Federation was done in 2013. We hope that this time around they will finish it, and then we'll have a new revenue sharing formula that will reflect the realities on the ground. Now, I don't know whether I want to push that further.
Yes, why not? What are those realities?
The realities on the ground. You see, if you go around the states, a lot of the states are, I hope the governors will not kill me, some of them are very badly run. You'll find the fiscal infrastructure in most states are in bad states. Hospitals are not working, the roads are filled with potholes. And then, to make it worse again, a lot of states have backlog of salaries that are owing, pensioners that are owing. And then, add on top of it again, the new revenue share, the new salaries structure that has been, new minimum wage that has just been approved. Now, what additional burden to the payroll of most states. So with that now, it becomes difficult. That even under the current regime that we have, states are struggling, with the federal government carrying about 52.68 of the total money. So the hope and the wish is that in the new formula, the states and local governments will get more share of the national cake, and hoping that the governors this time will be able to pay salaries and pay the pensioners. But there are a lot of issues there because I have discussed, I've talked about issues, some places. And for me, one of the issues I have is what I call fiscal discipline, or the state level. What do they do with the money? Now, if you recall, in the past 4 years, the state governments, apart from the Fiscal allocation, they got the bailout fund, they got the Paris refund, and still, a lot of them are still owing, salaries in arrears. A lot of them are still owing pensioners. A lot of the states are not doing much in the states. So it's a problem. So when you see state governors now telling you they spent $2 billion on buying burial dresses, it's a problem. So when you see state governors that he lands in a state that's near his own, that's where the airport is, and he has to do a 2-hour journey to his own state by road. And the next day, he thinks that his state must have an airport. An airport that should cost less than 10 billion will be, they will spend about 60 billion in it. So there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed in fiscal, discipline along the state level, even as we're angling for more money from the federal government. So
what you're alluding to is a lack of trust, really, in those who will be, the stewards of this money. So if you give them more money, it's going to just be mismanaged, right? I
am saying that so much money has entered into the hand of the governors in the last 4 years.
With nothing to show for it. So what's the justification for giving them more?
Give them more money. Yet they are owing so many salaries. And even one of the governors was justifying why he had to pay instrumental salary, and educating us on why he has to pay people their salary in bits. And we should clap for him. So much money has come to their hands. If you do recall, when the bailout funds were given, ICPC came out with a report that some state governors actually diverted the bailout funds. The major purpose was go and use it and clear the backlog of salaries. Some state governors actually, based on ICPC report, diverted some of those money. What we see in Nigeria is a problem. The problem we have in Nigeria is this. You hear the billions coming into the states, but you don't see, when you go to these states, you don't see what is happening.
Well, I get your point about fiscal discipline, about accountability. I mean, these are very valid points. Yeah. But, in terms of what goes vertically, vertical allocation, issues are raised about equity, about justice, right? About fairness. And there are many Nigerians who say the formula that we have been tinkering with doesn't achieve those objectives, not even the objectives of development. Okay, you can plug leakages, you can, close the leaky bucket, but at the end of the day, people are asking for fiscal independence. Some people are asking for fiscal independence. They are asking for fiscal autonomy for the states and the local governments. And they go further and say we should have fiscal decentralization for us to be able to achieve the objective of fiscal federalism. Do you agree with that? That every state, whatever you produce in your state, is yours. And let each state develop at their own pace in line with the principle of federalism so that we can have competition, so that we can use that to push production.
We would need to amend the Constitution. Is that what you're saying? Because everything now is vested in the federal government.
No, I'm even raising the point. Yes, Constitution will be reviewed. But I'm raising a philosophical point.
About the model. Major issue now, in the sense that, let me give you a statistic that will support the point. You see, the total revenue of the state is from FAC allocation, from the federal level, and the internal generated revenue.
Which is distributed horizontally.
Yeah, the IGR. No, locally, internally generated revenue in the state. Now, based on the report for 2018, the IGR, as a percentage of the total revenue of the state, is only about 31%. So that means that the 69%, 69 naira of every 100 naira that each state spends, they get it from the center. Now, only 2 states, Lagos State and Ogun State had more money from their internal generated revenues than they got from the federal allocation. Now, the internal generated revenues from what? About 57% of it from payee. This is taxes paid by workers in those states. And then other levies paid by other road taxes and so on and so forth. The current regime of going to Abuja to go and collect money every month is discouraging a lot of state governments from looking inwards and developing their states. Because a lot of states, now the report that was done that every state in Nigeria has one thing or the other they can develop. You know, and if you attract investments into your state, industries will come into your state, employ people, and then who will give you more taxes to drive your state? But a lot of the state governors are not interested in these things. The major issue is, let's go to Abuja and pick up the money. So that's the problem. Now, I'm just trying to align it to the statement you made, in the sense that the current formula we have is discouraging, independence of states to work hard to drive their revenue. Because if you adopt what you're saying now, which is the case that let each state use what they produce and maybe pay tax to the center.
Yes.
Basically that's how they come in. It's going to be a lot of problems for a lot of states. It's going to be a lot of problems for a lot of states. But
they should produce or perish.
Exactly.
They
need to be thrown in at the deep end.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It will also create the fiscal discipline will require. Because if a governor of a state that says he spent 2 billion they told him he spent 4 billion in burial dresses. He said no, it was not 4 billion, it was 2 billion he spent. As if we should clap for him that it's 2 billion, that is small. If that governor is working hard to get revenue from his states, I don't think he will spend that 2 billion in those funeral dresses. He will work very hard. A lot of governors, do you know some governors actually don't stay in their states? They actually stay in Abuja. That's what most of the state governors do. Some state governors especially do. Permanently in Abuja. And have you seen some of them travel? About 20 cars convoy, and almost of them are jeeps. Some of them are armored. Do you know how much these cars cost? And this not even traveling in their states. See them in Lagos here or in Abuja. So the kind of lifestyle we're living in Nigeria does not correlate with our earning capacity of our country.
Hold that thought. Let's go on a very quick break, and as soon as we're back, the conversation continues. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Still with us is Mr. Chika Mbonu, and we're having a conversation with regards to this federal allocations. Now, while we were on a break, we were getting into a conversation about local government areas, which leads me to want to pose a question to you about that. Now, we always say change starts at home. So really and truly, local government areas or your local government is the closest that you have to you within the polity, yet they get the littlest share of the national cake. How much impact can local governments across the country, all 774, really actually have on their environments with this percentage that they're currently getting? Because this may be why people don't see changes at local government level.
They get 20.6%.
Yeah.
20.6%.
So they're also the slave to the state governments as well.
Something was interesting yesterday when we were watching this thing that happened in El Paso, Texas. And you will see the mayor of the city, like the local government chairman.
The city officials.
Yeah, the city official, local government chairman, and then the state governor, addressing the press. So you will find that's where this is the structure that will copy it. Where the local government is, is independent, and then, as a micro of the state. That's how it's supposed to work. But in Nigeria, also, it's supposed to work that way. But the constitutional framework required to make that happen has not been pushed. Let me say a couple of things. In 2014, when they wanted to change the constitutional review, one of the points there was that the local government autonomy. But it was not passed because some of the governors and the state assemblies, worked against it because they knew what was going to happen. I see a lot of local government areas in Nigeria as a piggy bank of state governors. Basically, when the money comes into a joint state account, the governor decides what to do. For me, for the local government to have the impact they're going to have, it starts from the electoral process. How are we electing our local government officials? The current structure now that we have, where the state independent electoral commissions are subservient to the government in power in each state, it does not work for us. We must find ways of making them, that independent being really independent. That's where it's supposed to start. So that the elected officials don't become lackeys to the state governors. And they don't just, submit to the whims and caprices of the governors. And that's the way what we're suffering now. So the whole money comes in now, and the state governors decide what to, give out to the local governments. And they are grateful for whatever the handout have been given. And most of them, when the handout is given, what do they use to pay some salaries? And you don't know what happens the other hours.
Change, really.
Local government structure is supposed to have, the structure of local government is the state level structure where the governor is there and the House of Assembly is the oversight. It's replicated in the local government structure. You have the executive in the local government and the councillors. But everybody is just subservient to the governor of the state. So the structure created to enable local governments in Nigeria develop have not worked. And so all the money that comes in now goes to state government account, and then they do whatever they're supposed to do. Now, the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, as you know, came out of this policy that the amount standing to the credit of local government in Nigeria must be credited to the local government accounts. And then the other thing that was done, because of money laundering, they said that no local government can spend more than 500,000 naira a day in cash. And every other payments must be done through bank transfers and so on and so forth, to make sure they create some independence or transparency in the spending of money.
But the governors are challenging that. They've threatened to go to court because they say the constitutional provision empowers them to set up a management committee for funds accruing to the local councils. Maybe we'll need to change that. But let me raise another post. The chairman of the RMAFC, Elias Mbam, he said, apart from setting up a committee to review the revenue allocation formula, he said something about expanding the sources of revenue. Now, is that necessarily something that the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Allocation Commission can do? Because, even if the title says revenue mobilization, who will do this? Who will expand these sources of revenue? And how do we ensure that expanding the revenue base, either for the states or the country, is not done only through increased taxation, which is the most convenient thing? And as Tunde pointed out about the Constitution, what should the National Assembly do beyond just ratifying the outcome? Should the National Assembly look at some other pieces of legislation, like the National Inland Waterways Act, like the Petroleum Act, some of those laws that give almost absolute powers to the federal government?
Yeah. The first thing I want to mention is, in the last 20, 30, 40 years, Nigeria has been solely dependent on oil. And every government, the development plans were in the 1970s. They move into the 80s. Every development plan on Nigeria you get to, the first objective there is to diversify the revenue base of Nigeria. That has been the sing-song from then, but nothing has happened. Still, our revenues are about 90% dependent on oil. Now, when I heard him say that, I would just say, what structures does this guy have to ensure this diversification? I think it's more on the fiscal side of the government than him being able to do that. And because I heard him talk about, if it's the case that he's going to present paper to the government or the states and whatever, I can understand. But the issue is that, as I said before, each state in Nigeria has one thing or the other they can develop to earn money. Each governor in Nigeria must work towards making their states amenable, comfortable for investors to come in. Because that's everything that can be done in each state. One of the states I come from had palm plantations, had palm oil mills, had big poultry farms. But all those now have gone. So most state governments now must go back and look inwards and make sure that they work towards making sure that the states are comfortable for the investors to come in. Look at Ebonyi State, for example. Ebonyi has mineral deposits, almost all the mineral deposits. The governor of that state should, one, provide security, make sure that security in the state for investors to come in. And make sure that the communities in the state don't disturb investors from coming in. For me, those are the kind of things we need to do to diversify the revenue base. Not just, as you said, taxation. That we've been angling, you heard the one that said that the 5% tax now on online transaction.
Yes.
There's going to be an increase in value-added tax, from next year. those are lazy ways of looking for diversifying revenue in a country that has everything. All the minerals that in the world are here. All the farm produce required in the world are here. But it's always so easy for us to look for the land of least resistance and go and increase taxes. For me, that's not what it is. Now, the other issue you mentioned is that, yes, when so much power now is consolidated in the federal government, and the National Assembly must work towards reducing that power and making the states more independent and less dependent on handout from federal government. Almost everything now, as you said, the inland waterways, the oil and gas, everything is federal government. So we must work towards making sure that some of these powers are, cascaded down to the states, enable them, monetize them to make revenue for those states.
Well, our leaders certainly have developed a taste for low-hanging fruit, but this commission has said that they're going to review the current allocation. So right now, we have 52 points, I believe 63%, 68% going to the federal,
26.7 to states, and 20.6
to local government. Yeah. What would satisfy you? What would indicate a level of sincerity?
Okay, see, the combined local government and state is about 47.32, less than what the federal government is getting. For me, it should be like combined for local government and state should be about 60% minimum. What the federal government can keep, something.
Just 60% or more?
I'm just saying at the minimum.
Why 60? Why have you pegged?
I mean, combined for state and local government should be more 60%, and the federal government should keep 40 because they still have expenditure. They're maintaining the security of the nation. They're running the army, they're running the navy. They still have to spend some money.
Yeah, derivation is also another controversial thing. I mean, during the public hearings in 2013, all the states in the South more or less said, look, let's have 50% derivation.
Basically.
Now, the matter showed up again at the National Reform Conference, political conference of 2014. And the Southern states said, well, maybe we should increase derivation from 17% to 25% and gradually to 50%, as we had in the First Republic. All the representatives from the North kicked against it. Rather, they called for the restoration of the onshore-offshore dichotomy. Now, what do you think? Because all of this will still come up.
See, let me put it this way. Everything is because of the fact that 90% of the revenue comes from oil. And so don't be surprised. The northern states don't have oil.
But they have a lot of illegal mines, and they're not being taxed.
Yes.
And they're looking for oil in the Lake Chad Basin.
No, really, because we speak about diversifying this tax base, but hey, you're not even taxing places we should be taxing. Why is illegal mining still allowed?
Yeah, illegal mining is because of the fact that, remember, when you have an easy way of making money. You see, the confusion in this country has arisen because of the fact that we discovered oil in 1956. That's our problem.
Anyway, we'll take a short break now, and then we'll come back and continue. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Still with us in our Lagos studio is Chika Mbonu, a financial expert and a former banker. Now, before we went on break, we were talking about derivation, the onshore-offshore dichotomy law, and why there is illegal mining in some parts of the country, and they are not part of the revenue base for the country.
It's amazing that we are complaining about lack of diversification of Nigerian revenue. As I said before, we are endowed, even with the most rare elements in the world are found in Nigeria. The elements now that all the people who are building airplanes, who are doing computers and stuff require in big quantities, are all available in Nigeria, especially in the north. But as I said before, it's easier to get one barrel at $60 per barrel, and then we go to sleep. And we don't focus on all those. And that is why you have things like illegal mining that you mentioned in the north. At the time in Nigeria, do you recall that we didn't have oil? And Nigeria was run with the granite pyramids in the north, the oil business, oil, palm, and whatever in the east, and the cocoa in the west. You recall that in Ibadan, I schooled in University of Ife. We used to go to Ibadan, and then there's this cocoa house that we had, cocoa has built with cocoa money, But Nigeria has moved from that, and everybody now is focusing on the oil. That's our cost. I do believe that we require sincere, rethinking of Nigeria, where we're headed to. There are so many dysfunctionalities in Nigeria, and I do believe that one of them is how to share this revenue. This issue of how much revenue do you get and how much do you keep is very important for our country. And that's the major issue that you have raised on the derivation. Now, I think it's 30% now for the 9 states that in the oil producing area. And you need to travel to some of these areas to see the kind of damage that's done to the environment. I don't even think that 13% compensates for the kind of damage that they've done in this area. So I associate myself with the need to up this derivation from 13% in now to something much higher to further compensate and develop these areas. It is when you read the things written by the people in these oil areas, you will say that you hear them that we suffer here. When you come, you see our slums, our water's polluted, our women are sick. Meanwhile, if you go up there, you see the what our oil money has done. And so derivation is a major issue, and we should look into it. Now derivation again shouldn't stop at oil only. Once any product in Nigeria is contributing substantially to the overall revenue generation of Nigeria, it should come into the derivation basin. For me, that's what it is. It will force these states like Zamfara State that have massive gold mines, that illegally mine now, to go back to those and develop them. It will force all the states in Taraba, Bauchi, that have the mineral deposit to work on them. It will force the states like in the southwest here, that used to do cocoa, to also develop them. And let us stop rushing to Abuja to just go and share the national
oil in the Lake Chad basin too, or they are still looking?
The Lake Chad basin exploration is interesting. I'm an engineer by training, and I've read a lot about the oil find or the oil search in those areas. And I think Nigeria has spent a lot of money in those areas without even striking a find. Even is one barrel. We're not found yet. And we're still pumping money. Well, I don't know whether the objective, I do believe that even that money that's being sunk there, if it's put into the areas that will have oil now to develop them, we'll have more barrels discovery. That's my belief. So I do believe that maybe all the money that was sinking in that side and not finding any oil should be even redirected to develop the mineral resources in those regions. If the money was sinking in the north now, like Chad and searching for oil, if you use in developing gold in Nigeria, I'm sure we'll make more money, and so on and so forth. That's my opinion on that.
So we keep coming back to the same unescapable fundamentals, which is mismanagement, a culture of mismanagement. What is the practical effect that this commission's review or reform of the sharing formula, what practical effect will it have? This is quite a bleak picture.
See, for me, I said it before that what have you done? What has been given to you for you to ask for more? We were discussing the other day, and somebody said that the state, that the rebellion is almost a civil servant state. But the governor is doing so much. You go to that state, he's doing roads, he's doing primary health care, he's giving scholarship and so on. And how is he doing it? And I just say that I know, I'm an accountant, I know that the money coming to those states are enough to develop those states. The governance is simple. If you have the heart to serve and do good for your people, the money is enough. How many of us know the security votes of each state government? You see, some of the state governors are saying the revenue coming in is reducing. So civil servants will proportionate to your salaries and be paying you as the revenue is coming down. Meanwhile, have you asked them, have they reduced their security vote? They have not. So the issue against Nigeria is lack of accountability. Now, what are we supposed to have? State House of Assembly are supposed to do what? Provide oversight to the state government. But what do we have here?
Rubber stamp state House.
Rubber state assembly. Rubber stamp assembly. People who don't have the conscience and integrity to monitor the states. So you find the speaker is somebody the governor wants. That's the first thing. The governor that will want the speaker to be there. So when the speaker is there, appointed by governor, not elected by by a colleague independently, what do you think is going to happen? So you find a lot of the House of Assembly are just mere appendages of the state government. And the oversight responsibility they're supposed to provide is not being done. See, and that's around the change. So you see the money that comes in, they make, that's why you see some governors sometimes, they have bought 40 cars for the members of the House of Assembly. They have paid them this, they have paid them that. And after that, what happens? No oversight responsibility. Absolutely. And so that's the problem one of the problems we have in Nigeria.
Now, you mentioned fiscal discipline at the start of this conversation, and what's interesting is we don't really have a way of tracking what states are spending their federal allocations on. So with a new framework trying to come in, etc., how can we ensure that there is a way for us to track what states are spending their federal allocation on? Because clearly, if we don't even get that right, then what are we even discussing? Because if we look at the economic effects of the current sharing formula that we have, clearly something is wrong. So I also want you to talk on how it's affecting our economy in real terms.
See, as I said, the structure that we have is supposed to be that the House of Assembly is supposed to provide oversight to the state governors. Basically, before you spend, you get an appropriation by the House of Assembly. That's the way it's supposed to work. And then there's a procurement process in the states, all done. But what did you read in the paper the other day? One governor was just awarding 2 billion contract, 3 billion contract, and like that, defying the procurement process in the state. So who will serve us? Who will go for us? So those are the problems we have. That the structures have been created to protect the system. Yes, the political system works on the basis of like the presidency is checked by Senate and House of Reps. The state governments are checked by the House of Assembly. Local governments are checked by the councillors. But everything is upside down, even starting from the top.
Yeah. Well, maybe there is a role here also for citizen action. Action in the sense that, at a point in this country, the Federal Ministry of Finance used on a regular basis to offer a publication of what is allocated in the expectation that the people themselves will ask questions. And earlier before you joined us, we were talking about a complicit middle class, perhaps, too challenged to be able to act or ask questions. But let me throw another thing into the conversation. Now, one of the, I'm a bit pessimistic that we'll be able to solve the problem of revenue allocation from now unless we deal with certain things. Some people will go as far as say they are calling for restructuring of Nigeria, or they will insist on, ensuring true federalism and not this, mixed structure that we have. And this has to do with size. One of those indicators used to determine revenue allocation: size, population, diversity,
equality,
development, equality.
40%.
Yes.
Population is 30%.
Yeah. Now, population. Do you think we can actually have an acceptable framework if we don't deal with the issue of population? We don't even know how many we are in this country. And that's why you find some states, they will go and create what they call development centers or development units. When that happened in Lagos State, the federal government said, no, we're not going to allocate anything to this your development unit. It will just be the 774 in the Constitution. What you now do with what is allocated is your own problem. But you see, that problem, I don't think, has gone away.
Yeah, no.
Yes, so how do we deal with it?
Can
we ever have a proper
equality,
census?
40%, population, 30, yes. Land, mass, and terrain, 10, IGR, 10, and social development factor, 10. So, see, population is a major factor here. I don't recall when we had an acceptable census in Nigeria. Every census that we had in Nigeria has always had some controversy. It's always a problem. So you find that what has been happening is that even internationally, sometimes you read Nigeria is 190 million. Sometimes you read about 220. We hear about 210. So population is a major issue, and we need to work hard to have an acceptable census. I don't know who will come and carry it out, because whether you appoint someone from the north, the south will protest. If you appoint someone from the south, the north will protest. If you appoint a Muslim, the Christians protest. So there's controversy, but it's a challenge. We need to know how many people that we have in Nigeria truly, because that will enable planning. If we don't know the number of people that you have in your house, how will you know how many pots of rice you're going to cook? So we need to solve that problem. The other issue, of course, equality is 40%. Land, mass, and terrain. So how do you describe that? Is it hill or low or stuff like that? So there's a lot of subjective factors that go into the horizontal sharing of the revenues. You know, the first vertical one is basically the federal government, state and local government. Then when you have the bulk for the states now, how do you share it to the 36 states? And that's why these criteria come into play. So population is a major issue for Nigeria. We need to know how many people that we are. What is happening is that we had a base that people believe in, and they have been applying factor on that every year. Annual increase. And so if the base is wrong, we're just building skyscrapers in the air. This is a problem. So we need to address that.
So regarding this criteria, is that actually how it should be distributed? Because if we're going to reform, we might have to just reform the whole thing at this point. Why not?
Yeah. The truth is that at the time, there were 14 criteria. There were 14. You know, but as the years, went by, they have been reducing the criteria up to these 5 that we have now.
IGR at 10%.
10%. See the point now. I think IGR should be raised.
Yes.
Because it will force an Imo state or a Zamfara state to go and look inwards to make sure that IGR goes up.
State governors should be incentivized.
As I told you, only about 4 states had an increase, double their IGRs over in 2018. Some states even had a fall. Now those that increased their IGR, what did they do? They automated their processes. You go to some states now, the internal revenue divisions, they are like very manual. So they appointed new people in the internal revenue. They sensitize citizens on why they should pay tax. And then, of course, some new levies, So in that way, some states focus on IGR, and IGR includes. I believe that we should compensate states more. This IGR contribution should be raised to compensate states, to encourage states to raise revenues.
Absolutely. And just on another note, do you not think the governors at this point should really just be sanctioned if they cannot reach a certain level of achieving IGI every year? No, seriously, shouldn't there be some sort of executive order?
For a second time.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah. Everybody asked me a question, and I said that the problem in Nigeria will sometimes be resolved when our votes count. The day our votes count, that's when our solutions, the problems start coming in. Because if you know that the governor is not doing whatever, and you can go and vote him out.
Well,
and when
thank you very much, Chika Mbonu.
Thank you.
We have to close it. You've done very well.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Thank you, ma'am.